Actually, I have another thing that I could mention that's been huge for me.
It just makes things so much faster. And I think being efficient is really key. And that's something that I've learned.
These inspire me so much.
Built this a couple of years ago, and I wish I had done this sooner.
Now, there is a lot of camera gear out there, and to be honest, all of it is pretty expensive. So I thought it'd be interesting to ask a variety of different YouTubers with decades of experience collectively on what they feel like they should have invested in sooner. And this ended up turning into a little bit more of a podcast than the video I initially thought. That said, I do feel like the information in here is very valuable, so maybe just brew a cup of coffee, sit down. You don't even necessarily have to watch the video. You could almost just listen to it. There won't be any B-roll or anything, but I do find that the information that they provided in this video is potentially useful to you guys. So I hope that you enjoy what they have to say.
Yeah, man, that's a really good question. I know one of the first things I wish I would have invested in was definitely getting into like some type of like rolling case for my gear. In my case, I use like Pelican cases, but I know there's a lot of brands on the market. But like moving away from backpacks definitely helped me out a lot because, you know, after a while, once you have a few camera bodies and some bigger lenses and batteries, and especially in the world of video, there's so many accessories sometimes you need to bring. I was actually starting to have like real physical back problems trying to carry all this stuff around. And then I also looked like a pack mule trying to like show up on set with all these things in my hands, like tripods and all this. Investing in the right Pelican case really helped me out a lot, and it saved my back. That said, kind of the next step to that, and probably was even more beneficial, was really just like investing in people. I know you asked for one thing, but I'm gonna give you two.
Yeah, that's great. I love that.
Investing in people, by far, like moving away from the one-man band thing was absolutely huge. Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't mind me. I'm just over here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you can keep talking.
Just walking around.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. But yeah, no, investing in people was absolutely the thing for me that really changed my business as a whole, because it allowed me to not have to do everything by myself. And whether that was a BTS shooter or actually hiring out a PA or eventually getting to the place of working with DPs and even editors, it really did allow me to like elevate what I was doing because I wasn't the only person on set. So probably one of the biggest things I would say to most people is try to get away from that one-man band game as quickly as you can.
Yeah, so I mean, to be honest, I am in that one-man band game, and it's difficult. It's difficult every day to do everything on your own. I'm talking from a YouTube perspective. You were talking more even from a production standpoint, which of course, that makes a lot more sense. But yeah, it's hard to wear all of the different hats. So if you have things that you can delegate to other people, it's just gonna save you in the long run, and you can potentially focus on more important things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even challenge you as a YouTuber, like hiring someone to focus on the BTS while you're focusing on the creative content that you're making, it's going to only allow you to elevate. So whether you're a content creator or a videographer shooting weddings, or you're a filmmaker working on an actual short film or feature, having more people around you is just gonna help you to create better art.
The thing I wish I would have invested in sooner for my filmmaking career, it's gonna sound a little bit silly, but it's actually these bags right here. This is from a company called CRD. These little organizational bags have been a game changer, mainly because as a filmmaker, I have things that I use not only for YouTube, but also production. So for example, this one says cable. So I know it has all my USB-C cables. If I'm looking for HDMI cables, for example, I can just grab my HDMI bag right here, and I know that all my HDMI cables are gonna be here. But here's the really cool thing about being organized, is the fact that I have a tool chest over here, and I can just keep these bags just neatly there, put them in place, and I can tell, for example, if let's say Evan or somebody's working for me and say, hey, make sure we need HDMI cables, SDI, also my magic arms. I don't have to tell them where it is. They can literally just look, oh, here's the spider crab equipment, and everything's in here. Also, when you're on set and you need to pack up, which, you know, this is not the funnest part when you're on set trying to get everything together. Oftentimes, if I hire somebody, they don't know how I organize things. So it's much easier for them to know, oh, here's an HDMI cable, where's the HDMI bag? Oh, it goes in here, and then they can put it away. It just makes things so much faster, and I think being efficient is really key, and that's something that I've learned. As I get older, time is very important, so being efficient is super crucial.
Yeah, time is money. I remember when I worked for you, you mentioned your Husky tool chest. We just shoved whatever we could basically in there. It was somewhat organized, but this new system, honestly, it sounds great. And like you said, it makes it just way easier when you have people that are working for you. They just don't have to have any questions on where things go because it's nice and labeled. I think organization is great. It's definitely something that I need to invest in myself. I also have a Husky tool chest, and right now it looks a bit like how your old one looked with just the cables everywhere and all that stuff. So yeah, CRD organizational bags. That's really awesome.
Yeah, they're very tough. It even has this little like carabiner clip too, so you can put them in different places. But yeah, they're very high quality. For me, I think they're fairly inexpensive because this is one of those things that you're going to invest in it one time. It's not like a camera that it's like, well, there's going to be a better camera in a year or 2 years. This is one of those things that you invest in it once and you just forget about it. It's a one-time investment.
By the way, guys, if you're curious as to what camera I'm using that is getting these kinds of reactions,
Huge. Oh, okay. Just walking around. Okay, yeah, sure.
Oh, whoa, whoa.
yeah, right.
Whoa, dude, I literally thought you had like a robot dolly following you or something.
It's actually today's video sponsor, OBSBot. Now, OBSBot is typically made for live streaming, and it's actually pretty cool. You can connect it to either your phone or like I was using it with your laptop, but rather than me just explaining it to you guys as a traditional sponsored thing, I'll just let this clip play of me and Cam kind of talking about how cool this camera is.
All right, bro, my auto's recording. Wait, are you on the webcam right now? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm on the OBSBot. It's like a f1.8 lens. Look at this, it kind of tracks with me too. Isn't that cool?
This whole time I thought you were like on a mirrorless camera or something like that.
No, yeah, it's just the OBSBot. It's pretty impressive, honestly.
That's crazy. Now I feel like I should use a better camera now, but.
Well, your FaceTime, your iPhone, that works fine too.
Yeah.
But this is pretty cool.
Yeah, and you don't have to keep this in there, but I can actually see like the color in your eyes, which I feel like gets lost a lot on like webcams and stuff. So that's pretty wild. That's pretty sick.
It's not bad. It took me a little bit to set it up to get really good quality out of it, but it's fully capable.
Is it doing like HDR?
It is.
Yeah. Oh, that's sick. Huh.
So it is doing HDR. Let me see if I have that turned on. I do. Yeah, HDR is on.
So like with iPhone HDR, it sometimes makes skin look flat.
Yes.
And the way it's doing on yours, I mean, you're using lighting, I think, too, though. But it looks more natural, so I don't know what they're doing, but it's pretty cool. Well, I don't know how realistic this is, but for me, it's something that really motivates me to actually go film. Whether it's like a paid project or just for fun or whatever it is, this thing motivates me. And without this thing now, I kind of just like, I get lazy and I'm just uninspired to use it. That thing being Anamorphic Lenses. Oh, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, right?
Whoa, dude, I literally thought you had like a robot dolly following you or something.
No, just, I do have a robot. It's a little AI camera.
Wait, does the camera move itself or is that digital?
No, it's moving. So like I can move over here. I mean, there's nothing to see over here, but I can move over here too. And then I have it set up so it'll zoom. You don't have to do that. But if I walk away.
Bro, that's sick.
So it's actually cool because like if you're doing a bunch of stuff, like if you're building a camera and you need to be around your space, but you want to talk to someone.
Dude, this is gonna be great for lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's made for live streaming. I'm using it in this way, but it's really made for live streaming.
Yeah, I might actually have to get one of these because I hate setting up cameras for live streams.
Yeah.
Like I'm lazy. Like that's why we're not doing it right now.
I know, yeah, exactly.
So that's great, okay.
Yeah, I'll send you a link after this.
It kind of blew my mind where I saw, I was like, it looked like a Tarantino movie, the way it was like zooming in and following you. Yeah.
So if the OBSBot sounds useful to you and how you need to produce content, especially if you're doing Zoom calls, or I think maybe even if you're an online teacher, this could be really particularly cool. Definitely check out OBSBot. I'll have a link down below in the description.
Anyways, speaking of Tarantino, Anamorphics, there's a handful of options right here. These are allow nanomorphs. There's a lot of anamorphic options out there, and whatever you can afford, I would say get your hands on those. One thing that I would suggest is either getting the Blazar Nero or getting one of the Blazar Remus lenses, because these are the closest thing to getting like the actual, that anamorphic look that's just kind of like, to a filmmaker's eye, just like, wow, like that's cinematic looking. So these Blazar Remus specifically, for the price point and the size and just yada, yada, yada. Like these inspire me so much. Anything I film, I want to be able to use these, even if it's just YouTube stuff, so.
Now, can you explain why anamorphic specifically, right? Because there's lots of expensive lenses out there that you could invest in, different cinema glass, or even just regular photography glass that's also really good. What is it about anamorphic that like really makes you excited?
So this is obviously personal taste, and I know a lot of people, when they think anamorphic, they immediately think about flares and black bars.
Right.
To me, it's a lot more than that. It's obviously it gives you a widescreen aspect, but if you use open gate, you can still get 16:9. It's more the separation that you get in the backdrop. It creates texture. There's so much more story. It kind of takes you out of the real world and immerses you in whatever is on the screen. So that's personally what I love to do. Like when I go watch movies, I want to get lost in the world. Like I just saw Dune 2, and it puts you, it immerses you, and they don't use anamorphics on that.
Right.
So, but for me, anamorphics are kind of a cheat code to doing that, you know, if you're not filming Dune, you know. So it's more of that. The flares obviously look cool. The softness looks cool. I like all that, but specifically it's that, just like that textured backdrop that makes it look whimsical almost. That's what I love about it. It's just, I don't know. It's to my brain, when I see anamorphic, I pay attention.
Yeah, well, I think that like everything these days is so clean. Like everything looks so good, especially with like Marvel these days. You know, every movie, it's so perfect. And that's why things like anamorphic, or even just using vintage glass like they used in the Batman, and I think they used it in Dune as well. They used some vintage glass.
Yeah, they did actually.
It adds a little bit of interest to your image, and obviously if you guys are at home watching Cam Mackey's channel, you see it in his footage. I mean, he does take care to make it look extra textured, which is honestly really cool. I dig it a lot.
I tried. But yeah, I think they used the rehoused Soviet lenses from Iron Glass for Dune 2. I think they use it for the whole film. I'm not sure on that.
The whole film, interesting.
I think so. You never know. These brands are always dressing it up to make it look like they did. So yeah, I don't know. Life's not perfect. Like my vision's not perfect. And I see ultra wide as it is. Our peripheral vision is like so expanded. So I don't know. I feel anamorphic is more of a representation than perfect lenses and perfect sensors and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, so you would probably recommend maybe looking into those Laowa lenses if you're on the lower end budget, but maybe if you have a little more to spend, check out those Blazar lenses as well. Any other ones that you've been using lately?
I mean, when it comes to budget options, I think Sirui and Laowa are great. But obviously, these lenses, I think each, they're like $800 or $900.
Okay.
So if you're saving up for a Laowa or Sirui, currently right now on the options that are available on the market, I would just be patient and save a little bit more money and just get these, because these are gonna be like the true anamorphic look when you go watch any of your favorite like Tarantino films or like vintage film shot on anamorphic. These, you know, in order to get lenses this small, there's things that they have to do to the lens design and the elements in order to get them to work. And when they do that, you know, they compromise some of the anamorphic characteristics. So these are a good middle ground on those.
So I'm actually going to pick a simple gear item that everybody should consider making one of the first early purchases in their career when they decide to be a filmmaker. And honestly, this is maybe something that other people have heard before, but I just want to reiterate the importance of this. And if you haven't invested in this, please save your money and do it right the first time, because you will want to make the right choice. And it is a high quality tripod.
Yes.
There really is nothing sexy or flashy about this purchase, but this particular tripod cost me, I think, $1,800 when I first bought it.
Yep.
It's fully carbon fiber. It's a proper production tripod. The same type of tripod that you would see like news reporters using or even filmmakers using.
Right.
It's got the ability to support up to, I think, 25 pounds. So I could use a variety of different cameras on it. But even for smaller mirrorless type cameras, having a heavy duty tripod with a proper fluid head and adjustment makes a world of a difference. I bought this right before I started my career as a full-time cinematographer, right when I started taking things seriously, and I took this thing all over the world. I think I've owned it now for about 15 years now.
Wow.
I'm 33, so this thing has lasted me, and that is the most important thing. Technology will come and go. Different types of gimbals and cameras are gonna go in and out of fashion. But this will always be, I don't care what you say, I don't care what new fancy things come out, a tripod is so important and so crucial, because what is the most important thing when it comes to shooting video? Having stable footage and keeping the camera stable. But yes, the Manfrotto systems are great. They've got so many other newer tripods, and our mutual friend Armando Ferriera has a Schattler, I think is what it's called. Sockler, yeah. And his is amazing. It's about twice as expensive as this. Yeah. But the way that works is it's like a one release system, and then the whole thing can go up and down with just one or two clicks. Whereas this is kind of the traditional tripod with the three different sizes here. And to be honest, the version that Armando has is great, and if you can afford that, then sure, go for it. But I don't think there's really any harm in getting a traditional tripod either to save some money. I just think a lot of people make the mistake of buying essentially the cheapest tripod that they can possibly find. And I will say too, there's a lot of knockoff tripods on Amazon and on B&H that are pretty affordable, and they seem to have great features, but they're made in China with kind of lower specs. The way that they're designed, the way that they're built, is just built in a quick fashion. So even though it may have a lot of features on some of those cheaper Binro tripods and others, I still think investing in a name brand that filmmakers have been using, like Manfrotto, Really Right Stuff, Gitzo is a popular one, and then of course Sattler, the one that Armando has. Sattler actually has some cheaper options as well, but spending probably around $1,000 to $1,500 on a tripod is probably the range that I would say. And again, this is a tool that as you grow and as you age, you're going to be using on every single shoot. I'd say the most important feature when it comes to tripod is having this ball head. It's so useful, isn't it, Connor? You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I was about to say, obviously the legs themselves, that matters, but really the fluid head is what you need. Specifically, now the ball head is of course what you use for leveling, but when you want to get those smooth tripod shots, you really want to make sure that the fluid head itself is actually really good, which obviously with Manfrotto, they do an amazing job. Sockler does an amazing job with things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The fluid head, I don't really know the mechanics of what a fluid head is doing, but there is fluid in it. That's why it's called a fluid head. And essentially, when you buy a really cheap fluid head, even if you have a small camera on it, you might see little micro jitters and little movements in the shot that just feel amateur. And this head is the 504 HD. They've updated this quite a bit. Again, I'm telling you, this is a 15-year-old tripod now. Right. So, but they have updated versions of this. And as you know, Connor, when we were working on Kinotika, we would use this tripod all the time for our B-roll. We just kind of zoom in on a product and just do a nice kind of little panning shot like this, or a up to down shot. And because of that fluidity, it's like you're on a gimbal. It's like you're on a dolly or something. And so, I mean, honestly, I would argue a tripod like this could really be your only stabilization tool. You use it for locked off shots, obviously, but then movement shots and B-roll shots. Yeah. And you can even use it as a monopod if you really wanted to. But
I do feel like a lot of people make the mistake of snagging a photography tripod when they're doing video, because those tend to be a lot cheaper. But you really do not want a photography tripod when you're doing video production. I mean, you can get by with it if you it's the only thing around. But if you're trying to get any sort of serious shots, just don't bother with a photo tripod.
In fact, I've got one right here. This is a collab with Joby and Manfrotto. And I do like how small and compact this is, but to kind of go off of what Connor is saying there, you can see how with these photography tripods, they usually don't have a fluid head, they just have a ball head on it. And it's nice because you can level it, but its default position is basically when you let it go, it just flops around, it just goes everywhere. Whereas on a video tripod, it's like expecting you to have your camera level with the horizon. That's the goal of a tripod for video, is to keep your camera level with the horizons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, obviously you're saying $1,500, $1,800, and even for Sockler, it's like $3,000, maybe more. But I do think that Small Rig has an option. I haven't tested it myself, but from what I've seen, it looks pretty solid, and it's a way cheaper. So if you're looking for a cheaper option, you don't have $1,500 to burn, maybe look into a small rig as well. But yes, definitely, yeah, Dave, that's great perspective. A tripod, it's kind of the cliche thing, but it's worth talking about, right? It may not be the most exciting part of your camera kit, but it is one of those pieces that will last with you for 15 years plus.
So something that I wish I invested in sooner is a big hard drive. And what I mean by that is a RAID system. So I use an OWC 8-bay RAID setup. And this allows me to put 8 different hard drives together in one array and make it just basically one giant hard drive. So on my 8-bay drive, I have 98 terabytes of data accessible at all times. So I can plug in my Thunderbolt and I have 98 terabytes. Now, I built this a couple of years ago and I wish I had done this sooner because basically I can put all of my footage from everything that I've shot on this one hard drive. And so when I'm editing, if I need to get this clip from 2018 that I remember, well, I don't have to go and plug in anything. Like everything is just on this one massive drive. Also, it's redundant. So I have one drive redundancy, which basically means if any one of these drives fail, I can add in a new drive and it will rebuild itself.
Oh, cool.
But also, like, I also have backups of all this footage as well. But accessible, I have 98 terabytes, which is everything I've ever made on YouTube is accessible in one drive.
Right on. So before you invested in this, what was your system, or how were you handling lots of media?
So just a lot of individual drives, which I'm sure a lot of you are doing the same. You have like a 4 terabyte drive, a 2 terabyte drive, another 4 terabyte. Maybe you have like an 8 terabyte. But like having these multiple drives all over the place just becomes such a hassle when you actually need to like go back and find something. You're like plugging in different drives, and then also like drives fail over time. So you might not plug in a drive for a little while. You plug it in and all of a sudden it doesn't work. So just having this one system that's always plugged into my computer, it's like an extension of my computer. I have it over here in my case. And so I come into my office, set my laptop down, plug in this drive, and now I just can edit off of this. Now I can edit off my laptop and also this drive, and I have access to so much data.
That's amazing. And obviously there's a lot of different systems you could go with. What's the one that you ended up settling on?
So I use OWC, which is Otherworldly Computing. They basically make an enclosure, so you can add in your own hard drives into it. So basically you get these trays, pull out each tray, and then you can put in your own hard drives. So I'm using Iron Wolf NAS hard drives. It's working right now. These seem to work fine, but you can put any size drives and basically build the system together. So I have 8 14 terabyte hard drives. 7 of those is 98 terabytes, and then the one drive is used for redundancy. So if any one of those drives fails at any point, you can pull the drive out, put a brand new drive in, the system will rebuild itself, and it works.
You would be surprised like how often you have to reference old footage. In fact, I don't have the system that you're recommending. I'm looking into getting some sort of a NAS system myself. But I have hard drives everywhere, all the little drives, been doing YouTube. So this is actually something that I'm looking into fixing myself. So this definitely is, I would say, something worth investing in.
Yeah, and just a note, so there's NAS, which is network attached storage. So this is something like a Synology where you can access it anywhere you go. You can go across the globe, plug in, and it's on the web. I used to use a Synology, but I think it's just too much of a headache, and I never actually need to access those files unless I'm sitting here at my office. So instead, I basically use a JBob, which is just a bunch of drives combined together in a RAID system. So it's not hooked to the internet or anything like that. It's literally just a RAID setup, so all of them are connected, and I have access to them via Thunderbolt. To me, that was just a simpler system, easier to set up. You don't have to deal with the whole network attached storage. But if you want to, then you do have the capability to get something similar in a Synology, attach it to connect it to the web, and then now you have access anywhere that you go.
That's cool. Yeah, and I bet that's probably a little bit cheaper too than the NAS system.
Yeah, I mean, it's all gonna be, they're not super expensive for the enclosure. That itself isn't like super expensive. What gets expensive is start adding 8 different drives, and especially if you're getting bigger hard drives that are $400 or $500 a piece, it's expensive up front, but it's worth it because you're gonna use this for a very long time. You're not gonna fill up that much data very quick, and then now you have access to everything.
So one thing I really wish I would have invested in way earlier is an accountant or some sort of money management, like contract kind of things, because it's so easy to get obsessed with the gear. Like in the beginning, I was obsessed with getting like the nicest camera I could, the nicest lenses I could, all that. And that just spirals out of control really quick because you think you need more than you do.
Right.
I'm sure you have experience with that.
No.
Yeah. But then like once you start making even a little bit of money, there's this whole other world of saving money for taxes and knowing how to expense things. So I really wish in the beginning I would have done more research or just hired an accountant in the beginning, somebody to work with that's actually good at that stuff. Because one way of looking at it is you could get those skills yourself. You could spend time, getting good at accounting and software and expenses and all that. But that does take away from the time you put into the creative craft that we love so much, which is making photos and videos. Yeah, for me, it's like finding an accountant or somebody to help me with the financial side of things.
Right, especially when it comes to taxes, because if you do it wrong, you could go to jail. So
Straight to jail.
it's probably definitely a good idea to either learn it yourself or, like you're saying, invest in someone who does know so they can guide you through the process, which I think is actually great. I think you're right. We do tend to focus a lot on gear, and there's nothing wrong with that. The gear is really cool, but sometimes we forget that this is a business, and you really have to make sure that your money's in order so that you can afford to pay for your life. So I do think it's really important. What's something that you've used now? Obviously, you're saying an accountant, but is there like an app or anything that you've used that's particularly helped you with your freelance YouTube space? It doesn't have to be YouTube, but just freelance.
Yeah, I was just going to talk about that. That's perfect, because the first app that I used for a couple of years was called Expensify, and it's pretty affordable, and basically you can just submit your expenses to it and it can try to auto track it. But in my experience, it didn't work that well. So actually last year I switched to a platform called Wave, and so far it's been really good for me. I'm still kind of experimenting, but basically you can link Wave to your business bank account, and every expense and purchase you make will just be automatically tracked through that. And they have, this sounds like a sponsored ad read.
Yeah.
But it's not. I definitely am not paid by them. I really wish I was. I'd be sick. But they also have a built-in invoicing platform, which is really helpful. So you can do like all of your expense tracking and invoicing through Wave. It's very affordable. And what's cool is on their invoicing, you can send the invoice to the client or whoever, and it gives them a link where they can pay with like any different form of payment, which is super helpful. You can just be like, hey, here you go. Figure out how you want to pay me and get back to me when you get the cheddar.
Yeah, because everyone wants to pay you differently, inevitably, right? It's like some guys
exactly.
Like, I have cash, I have Venmo, I have PayPal. What's your direct wire to your bank? So it can get really confusing.
Actually, I have another thing that I could mention that I don't know if you'll want to put it in the video, but it's been huge for me.
Let's find out.
Okay. So one other thing that I started doing recently, and this is all kind of related to the finance side of things, but I created a media kit for myself, which basically, I'm sure you're familiar, whether it's a client or a sponsor, I treat them all as clients, but like when they reach out to you, they're asking so many questions about like, what's your audience demographic? What's your style of video? Like, how much do you charge for this or this or this? And the media kit that I've made is basically like a 4 or 5 page document that gives them every single answer they could want. It's like, what countries are the most popular that watch my videos? Like, what's my demographics? How much I charge for a short, a review, or whatever. And that way I can just be like, hey, thanks for reaching out. Here's my media kit with all that info. And I just send it to them. So it just like automates that process and takes away so much hassle. And I can be responding to way more people because it only takes me a couple minutes to respond to people versus like thinking that through every single time. So that's been another huge thing for me in the world of like finance and working with clients and sponsors.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you're really applying this from a YouTube perspective with sponsors, but previously before YouTube, when you were doing freelance, I'm assuming you did something pretty similar with just like regular clients.
Yeah. So yeah, for regular clients, you could make something like a rate card, which would basically just say like, it's a nice looking document that could say, here's how much I charge to direct or to camera operate, to edit for a day. You could have all your rates on there. That way it's just cleanly and clearly laid out, because I've had a lot of conversations with people in the beginning of their business with video or photo, and there's no structure to it, and they inevitably just kind of like dig a hole for themselves, or they don't communicate about payment until after, and then like the client screws them over because they're like, well, you never like gave us a contract or anything. Why would we pay you? We thought you were working for free. So it's just those little things. Like if you just do those in the beginning and get them done, then you're setting yourself up for success, and it doesn't waste time, which is cool.
That pretty much wraps up this video, guys. Honestly, I feel like a lot of the advice that they were providing was helpful to me as well as to you guys. So if you found any of these guys particularly useful, definitely go check out their channels. I'll have everyone linked down below in the description. If y'all enjoyed this video, please subscribe. I have a lot of interesting videos coming up pretty soon, so you might not want to miss out on those. I hope that you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.